Hello my lovely knitting nerds, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Laura. I'm a chemical engineering student who is obsessed with fiber science and everything knitting, and that is something that we talk a lot about on this channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that probably every knitter has experienced throughout their knitting time, either voluntarily or non-voluntarily, and that is felting. Felting is that dense matted structure that you get if you wash your knitted garments the wrong way, or you probably experienced it with bought garments as well. Once upon a time for Christmas I got a Ralph Lauren sweater from my mom and dad, and I was so happy to get it. And then my mom had to wash it the first time and she washed it the wrong way, and it turned out to fit a 6-year-old girl instead of fitting me. So yeah, I've had first-hand experience with felting as well. But sometimes knitters want felting to be something intentional, and since there's been a lot of talk about the sailor slippers, I thought that we should break down felting today and talk about why it happens and how to do it properly, because I've seen a lot of videos online too where people don't understand why they're not felting the slippers properly, and that is something that we can dive into as well. And spoiler alert, the science is actually pretty cool. Okay, so felting happens when wool fibers lock together to form a dense matted fabric. You might see this happen by accident when washing your favorite sweater, or do it on purpose to create things like bags, slippers, or 3D embellishments. So in knitting terms, felting is basically the fibers sticking together in a non-reversible way to create a more dense material. And because the fibers stick together, you get this more dense matted structure that is different from your original knitting. Okay, so let's geek out for a second. Wool fibers have tiny scales in them. You can imagine it like shingles on a roof. So when wool is then exposed to heat, to moisture, and to agitation, these scales open up and they can lock together with the other scales from the other wool fibers. So heat makes the fibers flexible, water opens up the scales, and the agitation helps the fibers move around between each other and lock together. The result of this is a interlocked fabric that is dense, that is matted, aka a felted fabric. So basically, felting is just wool locking hands together in a very stubborn way that won't ever let go. Not all yarns can felt, and the structure of the fibers of the yarns are very important as to determine whether or not they can felt. So animal fibers like wool, like alpaca, like mohair felt beautifully because they're all made of keratin and is basically made of the same chemical structure. And all of those structures has those scales that we just talked about. And plant fibers like cotton, like linen, they don't have those type of scales, so you cannot felt those together. Which is also why if you're wanting to create garments that is washable in the washing machine, you usually go for other types of fibers than wool. So you go for plant-made fibers like cotton, like linen. And also the way the yarn is spun matters a lot for whether or not it felt beautifully. So I've taken with me here a yarn I know felts beautifully. It's a lanolin 100% wool yarn, and it is spun a bit more loosely. So as you can see, if you twist the yarn, the fibers will kind of go away from each other, which means that it is twisted quite loosely, and it is very stretchy as well. So if I knit something with this, put it in the washing machine, this will felt up beautifully. Okay, and here's the tough truth. When wool is felted, it is basically irreversible, meaning that it is permanent. You cannot undo it once it's done. You can gently stretch and block a felted fabric, but the wool fibers will still be intertwined and stick together, so you're not going to get the normal looking fabric again. And you cannot expect it to return to its original size. And that is why if you're wanting to felt, I highly recommend knitting a swatch and put it in the washing machine first, so you know how it felts and if it felts to your liking. And now let's talk a bit about superwash wool. I will not go into detail with this, but superwash wool is coated with a specific chemical that makes it non-felting. So the only type of wool that you can use, that you can put in the washing machine with a bit higher temperature, is definitely superwash wool. So if you want to felt something, you cannot use superwash wool, and you cannot use blends of wool and other materials. You need to use untreated wool to felt fabrics. But felting isn't always a disaster, and it can create quite a nice looking fabric and a warmer fabric because the fibers are so closely packed. So it is great for knitting mittens or slippers or hats. And for this reason, I've taken with me 8 felted patterns that I want to go through with you guys. So the first pattern I want to talk to you guys about is the felted bucket hat by Bon Marie Burns. And it is this very cute felted hat. It gives me very much Parisian vibes with the red color that she has chosen. And I know there's a lot of knitted berets out there that you can felt as well. You just have to knit yourself a swatch and then felt the swatch, and then you can determine how big you need to knit the hat or the beret to get that felted look. The suggested yarns for these will always be 100% wool, so I won't go through any of the recommendations there are. If you want to look for a cheaper wool alternative, Drop Snow is a great 100% a bit cheaper wool that can be used for felting, and I highly recommend that. And usually for these types of projects, you don't need a lot of yarn or a lot of meterage. This one needs around 200 meters of yarn, which is, I think, 4 skeins actually of the Drop Snow. And the fun thing about knitting something felted is you will have to knit it very big and it looks ridiculous, and then you put it in the washing machine and it comes out looking great. And I would say it was magic if I hadn't just explained all of the science behind it to you guys. The second pattern I want to show is by one of my favorite knitwear designers. She's a Danish knitwear designer and she's called Laura Delgaard, and it is her Nordic Mix Mittens. She has a Nordic Mix sweater, which I will put a picture on the screen of, and it is so beautiful. And she's made these mittens to go with it, and they are felted, and I really enjoy this because a lot of mittens are not felted and you will have to knit it in a smaller gauge to make sure that they are warm enough. But if you're creating felted mittens, you can knit it on a bigger needle size and it will turn out to be very warm, very nice, and very wind resistant as well. These are knitted in a bulky weight yarn, which is 13 stitches in gauge, which is quite big. You could definitely use a Drop Snow for this or any other woolen yarn. You only need 240 meters of yarn for this, and since it's this intertwined pattern color work without it being the same pattern all over, you could definitely use scrap yarns to make this and then make each of the different pattern sections or like the different colorwork sections a different color, and I think that would turn out so cute. And I'm definitely saving up all of my scrap yarns to make this once I have enough. The pattern actually comes in 3 sizes, which I think is quite nice. So there's definitely a size for mostly everybody, and otherwise you can, since you're felting anyways, you can just adjust the gauge so that it fits you and your hand circumference. Just make sure to do a gauge swatch before knitting, and I think this is my biggest recommendation. And I know people say you need to do a gauge swatch when knitting in general, and sometimes I actually do skip doing the gauge swatch if I'm knitting a sweater or something where I think that the gauge doesn't really matter to me. But for felting, I highly recommend doing a gauge swatch, because otherwise it can go very wrong, and that also ensures that you know which settings to put your washing machine on when knitting those or when felting your garment is done. The next pattern I want to show you guys is a mitten pattern as well, and these are so cute and so dainty, and they are very feminine to me, and I think that these would look gorgeous throughout the whole winter, or if you're doing a bit of a nicer or going to a bit of a nicer event, these could definitely go as a very pretty accessory. It is called the Amalies Finvott. I think it's Norwegian probably, but it is this very dainty mitten with a lot of lace work at the cuff of the mitten, and I think it is so cute. I really like the white color. I think it would do great in like a light icy blue or an icy purple or an icy rose color. So just in general, a pastel cool tone color would look so pretty on these. And it is definitely high up on my radar for when I wanted to do a felted project. This comes in 2 sizes, so I think it is okay for a mitten pattern, but I do really prefer when they have 3 sizes because I think it's more size inclusive. The sizes is small to medium or large to extra large, and I think most patterns or most people will find that one of those fit them anyways. However, since the cuff of the felted mittens are a bit bigger with all the little lace work and it's not like a narrowed in cuff, I think it is more important that there are sizes that fit you, because otherwise the mittens will just fall off your hands. But you should definitely check this pattern out if you like it, because it is so pretty. The next category of felted things I want to go into is probably my favorite category of felted things, and that is felted bags. I think these look so pretty, and I think it creates for a stronger fabric and thereby a stronger bag where you can actually put your stuff in. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've knitted a couple of bags, and while they look stunning and they are done in like a lacework pattern, they cannot hold anything. I swear to God, I can put my keys in it and it stretches out so much, which is quite annoying when you are using or like spending a lot of time knitting a bag and you actually want to use it as a bag and you cannot. So felted options are very, very nice because they're way more durable. And since this is knitted in a bulky weight yarn, it is 14 stitches engaged, so it will knit up very quickly. Oops, and I forgot to tell you the name of this, but it is the Hobo Bag by Cindy Gillon. And it is so cute. It is like the perfect everyday bag, and I think everybody could use this. And knitting it up in this color, like this grayish green color, is so pretty. I would definitely knit it up in a darker color. I cannot actually imagine it in another color than this because I just think this is stunning. I might, okay, wait, that is actually not true. I might imagine it in a red color for like a pop of color to your outfit. I think that would be so cute. The other bag I want to talk about looks a bit alike to the Hobo Bag, but it is called the boho-knot-bag-felted-purse by Cindy Gillon as well, so it is the same designer. This looks a lot like the dumpling bag that I showed on my TikTok a while ago. I will link it down below as well. It is a non-felted bag, but this is a felted version that looks a bit like that. And I think this is so cute as well. I really like the way that this closes by just taking the strap from one side and putting it through the other, and then you like close it that way. I think it would work great as a project bag for smaller knitting projects or just an overall bag. And I don't know about you guys, but I love tote bags. But I have not been wanting to knit one just because I thought that with the size and knitting it, it wouldn't hold anything anyways. But I think I might try out this one. It is called the Braided Cable Handle Bag, and it is a felted bag in a worsted weight yarn as well. And for me, it just looks so pretty and very minimalistic while still having a bit of a design to it. So the tote bag itself is a stockinette stitch bag. However, the handles of the bags are braided cables, and they go through to the front and to the back of the tote bag as well. So it looks very thoughtful, very nice. There are 3 sizes of this purse. There's a regular, a large, and a mini version of these, and I think if you do the regular or mini version, they will definitely be able to hold a lot of stuff. So I highly recommend taking a look at this if you want to create a bit of a bigger bag for your projects or as a light work bag. The last bag I want to talk about is called the Luna bag by Strikkit, and this is so freaking cute. I live in Denmark, and this looks exactly like the bags that have been in fashion for the last couple of years, these smaller purses that people bring with them when they're going out. I think this is such a cute design. You can customize it in various of different ways and with different straps, different colors, and I just think overall this design is so cute and I really like it. I will definitely be knitting this one. It is not a maybe, it is a I will knit this one. I don't know, I just think it's so cute and I really adore it. Okay, and the last pattern I want to show is what I've been talking about throughout this video, and it is the Sailor Slippers by Annie Germain. And these are known by everybody, their fathers, their mothers, their grandparents, so I don't think there's much of an introduction to be done for these, but I will link the pattern down below. There are lots of different slipper patterns out there which are felted as well, so if you go to Ravelry you can definitely find other patterns as well if you don't like these. These can be done in various different ways, in the striped way that she has been doing it, or you could do it in a like a whole colored slipper, but then the I-card lining, you could do in a different color, or you can just make them completely the same color. So there are various different options for this. I think this is such a good starter felting project, and it is a good gifting felting project as well if you want to do that. So this was the 8 felting patterns that I wanted to show you guys. And now I want to give you some tips on how to avoid accidental felting. So if you don't want to felt your project. So if you want to avoid felting by mistakes, here are my tips. So firstly, wash your wool in colder water will definitely help with this. If you wash it in warmer water, the scales will open up more, which is why I usually don't wash wool in higher temperatures. Furthermore, you need to minimize agitation. So that means the way you're handling the wool afterwards and when you're washing it, because agitation can interlock the fibers together. And lastly, I highly recommend always knitting a gauge swatch that you can wash and block before you do your actual project, and then you can see whether or not the yarn felts very easily. Okay, so that was it for this video. Felting is a perfect example of where science meets crafts, and it is a perfect example of something that everybody has probably experienced one way or another, and now you know the reason why it happens. Understanding the way your fibers works can either help you create a different texture or prevent disasters from happening, which is why I really enjoy making this video, to share this knowledge with you guys, so you can either do it or don't do it. If you enjoyed this video of diving into the science behind felting, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below if you have ever tried felting, either intentionally or non-intentionally. And as always, keep creating, keep experimenting, and keep knitting. Happy knitting, you guys, and I see you in my next video.